these Noble Hierarch blue decks in Legacy when you could play Noble Hierarch Deathbright Shaman. You curved into Trinity Nemesis and Leovold Emissary of Trest. One thing, the mana acceleration helped you a lot in the blue mirrors that were creature decks, like say Delver Secret strategies. The Noble Hierarchs did not fare well against decks like Miracles.
Yeah, I mean, mana accelerators in general are pretty bad against sweeper effects. Sure, they can ramp you a little bit, but once your opponent is able to cast that sweeper effect, it takes not only your threats away, but that extra mana acceleration.
It looks like Rowland was on the play. Flooded Strand go on that side of the table. Lynn starts out with a Misty Rainforest, finding Tropical Island, and there is Noble Hierarch. So she'll be at 19. We'll see what Rowland can do. So Miracles, there's like some contentious spots in these decks lately. I know that we see Counterbalance in some decks. We don't see it in others.
Well, now that there's no Sensei's Divining Top, you're kind of playing it raw. Like you got to hit it with a Brainstorm or you got to flip it blind. And in either case, the card is just not nearly as efficient as it once was. But if you play against a Delver-type strategy that the deck is 90% one-drop cards, that's where you can usually board it in and gain a lot of value off those blind flip ones.
Yeah, we don't see it in the deck here this weekend for Rowland. Just an island and a go on that side. Lynn is going to fire off a little cantrip action. Saw a Ponder, and now we're seeing a Dreadhorde Arcanist show up, thanks to the mana from that Noble Hierarch. Lynn fetching to 18 to deploy that. End step, we'll see Rowland fetch to 19 to find a basic Plains.
Rowland's going to need some sort of removal here on that Dreadhorde Arcanist pronto, or else that Ponder is going to be cast for free next turn. That's going to get Liz an extra card.
End step, Accumulated Knowledge, number 1, draw 1 card.
Pretty sure Liz is happy to see that. As long as Rowland is kind of just dirtling, casting Brainstorm, casting Accumulated Knowledge, and not deploying answers or threats onto the battlefield himself, that Dreadhorde Arcanist is going to do some work.
Kind of the big fear now is getting hit by a Terminus. That's the kind of the downside of the Noble Hierarch, because you have to put 2 creatures on the battlefield, if that's going to be one of them. But Lynn has dodged it so far. Rowland's going to Brainstorm on the main phase here, try to set something up.
He's got a reasonable amount of land, but I believe he's found at least one more copy of Accumulated Knowledge. That's going to be, at the very least, a draw 2. But he needs to find some answers to these threats, or else they're going to do a lot of work here.
Puts 2 cards back and plays Prismatic Vista as a land for a turn. And that card actually a pretty big upgrade to these Miracles decks.
Oh, for sure. Prismatic Vista, essentially an extra Flooded Strand. Most of these Miracle or Azorius decks only play 1 or 2 Tundra. And most of the time with your fetches, you're getting Island or Plains, and this acts as another kind of Flooded Strand in that regard.
Lynn's going to start her turn with an Exalted attack with the Dreadhorde Arcanist. That's going to flash back the Ponder. She'll keep those cards, draw 1, 2 damage coming across. Rowland to 17. And
here you're seeing the real strength of Dreadhorde Arcanist, because if Liz has, a couple of counter spells to back this up, this Dreadhorde Arcanist could draw, a reasonable number of cards over the next few turns, as well as just allowing her to hit her land drops and sculpting her hand for future turns after the sweeper or spot removal spell.
Post-combat, she'll cast a Ponder from hand once again, keeps on those, draws a card. You see at least 1 Force of Will in the holdings. Misty Rainforest will be her land for turn, and she'll pass.
Now, 1 card these Miracles decks occasionally play is Supreme Verdict. Do we have any copies of Supreme Verdict in the deck?
I'm not spotting a Supreme Verdict here. We have 3 Terminus.
Yeah, and we got 1 Supreme Verdict in the sideboard. So as long as Liz has Force of Will in hand, she is relatively protected from Terminus. But, a single counterspell fire back from the Miracles player can force that through. But as long as Liz is drawing, 1 extra card per turn at the very least, it's good for her.
Saw Rowland fetch to 16 and cast second Accumulated Knowledge. That one draws 2 cards. It's where it starts to get interesting. Yeah. There was some pause there, but Lynn did just let it resolve.
Well, Liz had Daze and could have hard cast or bounced a land to cast the Daze on that Accumulated Knowledge that was going to draw 2. Chose instead to kind of save it for a potential 4-drop play like Adjacent Mind Sculpture. Perhaps a little light on the front there.
Land number 4 for Rowland was a Prismatic Vista. He's going to leave that uncracked and cast Teferi Time Raveler. Now, if Lynn's going to counter anything, this is the one that you got to do something about. So here's Force of Will. It's going to pitch Daze. seeing as the Vista would allow Rowland to pay for that one. Lynn falls to 17 off the force.
Now, Rowland here, he's pausing. The only thing I can really think of that he would have here is a force back.
Yep, and that looks like what he has, thinking about what to pitch to it. A fan of masterpieces, Rowland seems to be.
When you play Legacy over time, you can trade or buy these pieces to your deck, and they're very rarely, if ever, going to rotate or get banned or anything like that. So, pretty safely invested in Legacy here. It really likes the look of these Amonkhet cards. Looks like we have a little bit of news from one of the back tables. Aaron Barich takes game 1 against Alex Clement in that mono-red aggro mirror match.
Rowland is going to pump the Teferi up to 5. The Time Raveler has a pretty powerful interaction against Dreadhorde Arcanist. Now, because Dreadhorde Arcanist has an ability that casts a spell and you have to resolve that spell in combat, the Teferi shuts that part off. So you see an attack for 2 with Exalted on the Teferi from the Arcanist. So that one cannot be cast.
Yeah, you can still target it with the Dreadhorde Arcanist, and you can choose not to cast it. I believe if you don't cast it, it doesn't get exiled, so it just stays there. No infraction, neither player. Like, Liz didn't pick up the deck to ponder or anything like that. So, Teferi Time Raveler static ability, just a huge nuisance, if you ask me.
Yeah, Teferi and Narset both lead to some weird situations with their static abilities. I played a Karn the Great Creator mirror recently, and that one gave me a headache too. Just 2 artifact decks.
Wasn't it like the first weekend we were covering War of the Spark? There was a modern event, and we saw both players with Karn the Great Creator in play, and
just run out of cards.
One person cast the Mycosynth Lattice. Neither player, the person who cast Mycosynth Lattice just had like one more card left in the deck.
Yep, very exciting stuff there. All right, so now you see the 2 damage come across, and Lynn will finish off the Teferi with a Lightning Bolt. Land for turn will be Wasteland, and she's going to deploy True Name Nemesis. Not concerned about a Terminus here.
Nah, I mean, Rowland hasn't deployed one yet. So this is more of a guessing game, or a hoping game, rather. As the game progresses, Liz didn't really want to deploy another creature, but Rowland here, could just have Swords of Plowshares into Jace the Mind Sculptor or something, and then the game is effectively over if you didn't cast that True Name.
Yeah, this situation with just Hierarch Arcanist, even Jace Bounce the Arcanist can effectively be very similar to a sweeper already.
Right.
In the modern seat, Dominic Harvey did win game number 1. So things generally going well for Lynn, Harvey, Barich. You see Rowland resolve a Ponder here. There was no Terminus on the draw step. He'll draw off the Ponder after shuffling.
Hand is not that bad, though, but it doesn't currently have an answer to either of these creatures. We got Doan's Veto, Snapcaster Mage, I believe, and a couple other cards.
Plays a second Prismatic Vista and passes turn. In upkeep, Lynn will sacrifice Misty Rainforest, go to 16.
Now, it might seem minor, but fetching during upkeep here allows Liz to get full access to all of her mana if Chris might have a response to the fetch land. If she cracks it during the end step, she's kind of like putting the shield down for half a second.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, very heads-up timing there. It's a free effect, right? Right. It doesn't cost you any mana. You may as well.
For those of you who may be watching and play Arena, you can set your stops during your upkeep on Arena with things like Experimental Frenzy, kind of similar in that vein.
Right. I want to say that we're in beginning of combat here as Rowland deploys the Snapcaster Mage.
Yeah, my guess is fetch Island, cast Brainstorm, look for Swords of Plowshares, fetch again, cast Plow on Dreadhorde Arcanist.
So Snapcaster Mage is going to flash back this Brainstorm. Rowland fetches Prismatic Vista to 14 to cast that. So there's a fresh look at the top. Looked for Terminus. It was a miss. So now he's hoping to have a Swords of Plowshares. I see a Force of Negation. One of the cards picked up. That one doesn't do a lot here.
No, but it's a nice one-of. I wouldn't even be surprised to see some people in Legacy playing 3 Force Will, 1 Force of Negation main deck, just because the exile effect is so good sometimes.
Now Lynn will attack with Arcanist and True Name Nemesis. Arcanist will flashback Ponder. Hand seems to be Ponder, Brainstorm, Noble Hierarch.
Now, one interesting play that Liz can make here is potentially using Wasteland on the Prismatic Vista. And that would either act as a Wasteland or force him to pop, which would shuffle the top cards of his deck in case he found a Terminus on top.
So the True Name comes across for 3. Rowland to 11. The Arcanist got blocked by the Snapcaster Mage. And now we see Lynn deploying Wrenn and 6. Powerful new Planeswalker from Modern Horizons. Starts on 3 loyalty. For +1, you can return a land from your graveyard to your hand. For -1, you can deal 1 damage to any target. And for -7, you give all your instants and sorceries retrace from the graveyard. Force of Negation is going to fight over that. And now we see a Brainstorm for Lynn. I believe a Daze and a Force of Will are left on top from the Ponder in combat.
Wow. Now watch this. Liz is actually going to pop the Wasteland on the Vista, and in response to the fetch, or after it resolves, she's going to Daze. Or not.
It's like Force of Will on Ponder is how she will fight.
Might not have been a Daze. Or might have just missed it, either way. But regardless, resolves the Wrenn and 6, gets the plus and get a land back.
And Misty Rainforest picked up and played as the land for turn. And now there's the Miracle Terminus.
It wasn't a Daze. I think it was a backup True Name Nemesis there.
Gotcha.
But that is a neat trick you can do against fetch lands when you're playing those types of cards.
All right, so the Terminus did resolve, and now here's a Narset Parter of Veils. Rowland will minus that one right away. Finds Brainstorm.
Narset's such a good card.
Yeah, it takes a little while for Wrenn and 6 to cut that one down.
Now Liz knows the top 2 cards of the deck from that Brainstorm. Still an upkeep here. Looks like she's going to go ahead and fetch to shuffle it away, maybe digging for some of those threats that got put on the bottom. And I wouldn't be surprised here if Liz actually starts minusing the Wrenn and 6 to chip away at the Narset. That way it might unlock something like Brainstorm or Ponder later on. Because right now that Narset is pretty annoying.
Yeah, absolutely. So there was the fetch to 14. She'll draw for turn. Looks like a fetch land was picked up. I want to say I spotted Scalding Tarn. And she already has plenty of access to that because of the Wrenn and 6. As you mentioned, the other card in hand is a True Name Nemesis. Wrenn and 6 is going to minus to put the Narset to 2, and there is True Name Nemesis. That resolves. We'll go back to Rowland. Draws for turn. So now with the Narset at 2, he'd have to give that up if he wanted to activate it again.
Yeah, decides to go ahead and pop it, digging deeper for an answer to this True Name Nemesis. Card is quite annoying if you're on the Miracle side of things. Need some sort of sweeper to get it off the battlefield once it's already there.
He found Terminus with Narset. That one's going to go to his hand, and he has a Brainstorm already. And it looks like Dovin's Veto backup, so it should be pretty easy for him to set up to get this Terminus Miracle next turn.
Yeah, and if he has another Brainstorm, he can actually do it on Liz's upkeep.
So here is Brainstorm, puts 2 back. Terminus is on top currently. Flooded Strand will be the land.
Now this is actually a prime spot for Liz to double Wasteland Rowland, because any of those fetch lands would actually shuffle away the Terminus. So Liz can Wasteland main phase and then plus the Wrenn 6 and Wasteland again and get both those lands if she wants to.
So she attacks with a True Name. Rowland to 8. Is going to use Wrenn and 6 to get back Misty Rainforest. Looks like a Chain Lightning picked up. I believe 1 copy in the deck.
Yeah, functionally just extra lightning bolts for the most part.
So Terminus Miracle there for Rowland. True Name Nemesis to the bottom. You see Lynn picking up lands. At some point, Rowland has to do something about this Wrenn and 6.
Yeah, and Liz here just getting those lands back right now, and at some point, if she is able to ultimate the Wrenn and 6, we'll be able to effectively chain lightning for as many lands as she has in hand, and red mana she has on the battlefield.
Which will be quite a few because of Wrenn and 6. You see Rowland fetching down to 7 here. Draws Island.
Yeah, and it looks like his hand's just super reactive. Looks like Doan's Veto, Another Force of Will and a Source of Plowshares. Liz is dangerously close to Ultimate already. I believe Ultimate's at 7. It's on 6.
That is correct. Yeah, Renin 6 up to 6. Delver of Secrets cast for Liz.
Not too hard for Rowland to deal with. Probably going to see a Swords of Plowshares here during the end step.
Right. Draw for Rowland. Time is ticking. He has to find an answer to Renin 6 pretty quickly. There is one Council's Judgment in the main deck, as well as a Vendilion Click, 2 more Snapcaster Mage, and 3 Monastery Mentor.
Yeah, he's going to go brainstorming looking for one of those cards.
Yeah, Jace the Mind Sculptor deployed here. Brainstorm with that. 2 cards back. So he has a Swords to Plowshares for the Delver, but the Renin 6 is looking to be the bigger problem.
Now Liz actually has even that Chain Lightning here to, well, that Brainstorm is actually a huge deal. I'm curious how this turn's going to play out. I'm just going to let it happen because there's a lot of back and forth about to happen between Dome's Veto, Brainstorm, and either Chain Lightning or Bolt, whichever one it is on the Jace. So let's just see how the sequence happens.
Yeah, so Delver revealed Brainstorm in the upkeep. Rowland Swords to Plowshares on the Aberration. So Lynn to 17. You see a Sacrifice of Misty Rainforest. She'll fall to 16. Finds that 3rd red source, Volcanic Island.
Only 6 total fetchable lands from the Steamer Delver deck, so.
Renin 6 to 7, picks up a fetch land. The graveyard previously was empty on lands because of all those Renin 6 activations.
Right.
So here is Brainstorm.
I think this is going to result in a fetch Dovin's Veto from Rowland. It's going to put him to 6.
That is a scary fetch. Fetch from 7 to 6 and 4 to 3 are a big deal against these red decks.
It is, but you have to understand how important Brainstorm is here after getting a ton of Renin 6 activations. All those lands that Liz got back over the last 3 or 4 turns now get to cash in effectively for 3 fresh cards. And she's so low on actual lands left in deck at this point that it's going to be like a full-fledged Brainstorm.
So there is Dovin's Veto. Can't be countered, counters the Brainstorm.
Now here I would suspect Lynn to just deal with the Jace while the shields are down from Rowland and just look to go for the Ren ultimate on the following turn.
Yeah, the Jace is more looks at answers to Ren, and the Chain Lightning comes back plenty of times.
Goes face.
All right. So Rowland does fall to 3 here.
Well, if he doesn't find the answer, he's going to die.
He brainstorms. There's some Monastery Mentors. Those are
Not
too
gonna
late.
do it. There's a Teferi Time Raveler that doesn't do much of anything. 2 Monastery Mentors and I believe 2 Force of Wills. We're going to get to see a Renin 6 finish off this game with an ultimate.
Yeah, I was apprehensive about the Noble Hierarchs going into the matchup, but I kind of undervalued how good Renin 6 is here. Just that ultimate does end the game.
Yeah, with a Bolt or Chain Lightning, it just turns all those extra lands you got back with Renin 6 into real cards. Even if all you're doing is casting a Ponder or a Brainstorm by discarding a land, that's nuts.
We have an update from the standard table. Aaron Barich, a quick 2-0 over Alex Clemente and the mono red mirror. As you mentioned before, yeah, we were not going to see it.
Well, if I'm this on the Miracle side of things right now, I'm not very happy, but let's see if he can find a way out of this. I may have misread his hand a little bit.
All right, so 2 cards put back from that Jace Brainstorm.
Looks like we have another Brainstorm, so we get one more dig, one more look deeper.
So there's Brainstorm, draws the 2 he puts back, and one fresh one. Tundra's not going to do it either.
Yeah, needed that Council's Judgment in order to get it off the battlefield, but here it looks like we're going to see an ultimate and just multiple copies of Chain Lightning going to be thrown at face.
All right, so cards go back. We go to Lynn, and there's the ultimate on Renin 6. There's some lands. Those are all Chain Lightnings.
We're going to throw them at you.
All right. So looks like quick win for the team of Lynn, Harvey, and Barich. So unfortunately, none of the matches were stopped, and Harvey and Barich just kind of ran over Sitsis and Clemente. Lynn did win the first game there, and I believe that she does get